All right, guys, we're back again like we never left. Episode number 4. It's me, Steven, everybody's favorite. My brother DeMarco here.
What up, what up?
We are going to bring you one of the most eagerly awaited moments of all time. The start of another Webheads episode. This week we have the Fantastic Four and the wedding of Reed Richards and Sue Storm. But to give you a little bit of a backstory on the team, we obviously have Reed Richards, Sue Storm, followed by Ben Grimm, the Thing, and Sue's brother, Johnny Storm, a.k.a. the Human Torch, again.
But not the same Human Torch.
Not the same one. They gained their powers after trying to beat Russian commies to space, even though they didn't have enough research to make the trip safely. And the Storm siblings had no experience in space at all. None at all. They weren't training in this field.
Yeah, like
whatsoever.
My knowledge of the Fantastic Four, I thought I was missing something when I knew like how they got to space and everything. I was like, I don't think they're qualified to be here, and yeah, they're not. I find out
if if you just looked at the four of them, you would only think that you would think maybe Reed and Sue for sure are like the scientists.
Yeah. But
then it ends up really being Reed and Ben who are the actual scientists in this whole thing. And then Sue and Johnny are just kind of their family, so they have to be there. Like, that's the only experience that they have. They decided to all make the trip as a family, take a nice little vacation to space together, so they can be the first ones in the world to do it. After making their way into space, they're bombarded with cosmic rays and are very quickly beginning to have issues. Johnny starts feeling like his body's on fire. Ben's arms are too heavy to lift. He's laying on the ground and can't get up. Susan starts slowly fading away, disappearing in front of everybody. And Reed is just slowly just stretching out his arms. And of course, they're all freaking out. They're all losing it. And then Ben gets upset with Reed because he's transforming now. His face and his whole body is turning into rocks. Then they crash their ship. And then Ben and Reed, are fighting with each other. The Thing is able to just rip out a tree from the ground and just swings it at Reed Richards. He's like, "You did this to us. You brought 4 people up here, 2 of which don't have any experience in any of this. And 2, before we left, I told you that we don't have enough research to actually make this trip safely. And then yet you still did it."
Yeah, how's this man a genius scientist? Like, how do you not? He's kind of coming off as like an arrogant kind of like fool, you know, like doesn't have enough resources or intelligence to be up there. He's taking 2 people who aren't qualified to be up there, and then
2 very unqualified.
And he just wants to beat the commies to get there. It's like you're not setting yourself up to look like a very nice person in the long run.
No, I'm convinced that in the Marvel universe there is no NASA. Because if there was, like, just let them handle it. But no, Reed Richards is here in the Baxter building trying to figure out how to get to space before the Russian commies.
Yeah, it's not like the government asked him to do it. It was just like, no, he's just there trying to do it.
No, he's just super smart. He has the ability to do it, so he's like, I got to get up there.
That's like
I got to do this before them.
That's the equivalent of Jeff Bezos, like, going to space before, like, any nation. Like, he's not doing it to save anybody or to help the world. He's just doing it just because he can do it.
Yeah, he's like, I can do this, right? Well, I mean, yeah, you're paying for the ship, so okay, yeah, let's do it. And that's the same thing with Reed. He's like, well, I have the equipment, so we can do it. Even though you have another qualified scientist there who's just like, no, we can't. He's probably just like, hey, we just talked about this last week. We just started thinking about this. And now you're like, well, let's just go. No, we're not ready for this.
Yeah, he's just quick to pull that trigger.
Yeah. So back to after their little fight, they decide that they have to use... They immediately, after they get their powers, they're immediately like, we got to use our powers for good. We got to save the world with these powers. And then they, not even 5 minutes after they get their powers, they start giving themselves their names. So now we have Reed immediately says, I'm Mr. Fantastic, because his head is just out in space anyways. The Invisible Girl, obviously, Susan Storm. She thinks of that on her own. I don't know how she came up with that. The Human Torch and the Thing. And like my brother said, this Human Torch is not the Human Torch that we've talked about in previous episodes. The old one, Jim Hammond, was an android Human Torch. And this is Johnny Storm, Human Torch. The original Human Torch, at one point between the last issues that we read about, All Winter Squad, and now, that Human Torch came across Ultron at one point, and that is a longer story to get into than we have time for today, but he is no longer Human Torch. But we'll let you guys read that on your own. So now that these four people have their beautiful superhero names, we're going to get into the lead up of this beautiful wedding that they're going to have. Now, this wedding was done in Fantastic Four Annual number 3. It wasn't a part of the main series of Fantastic Four comics. So for those of you guys that don't know what an annual is, let me help you out a little bit. It's basically a supersized comic that comes out once a year, but doesn't follow the main story arc of whatever the main comic is. So since the beginning of the Fantastic Four, they've had, I want to say, 35, 40 annuals since the beginning. One supersized comic every year that just doesn't fit their main story. The wedding that we're reading today is from Fantastic Four Annual number 3. And it is a doozy. This wedding that we're going to eventually get to is the most ridiculous wedding. I'm sure some of you out there have been to a crazy wedding or seen one on TV or a movie before, but it is nothing like this one.
Can I also preface that, like, in the Marvel Universe, the Fantastic Four are, like, well known to all the other heroes.
I was going to mention that in the main story, but at their wedding, literally everybody in the world shows up to this thing.
Yeah, like, the Fantastic Four are almost like, they're Marvel's first family, is like their nickname. Everyone knows them. They help out other characters sometimes. Like they're just always there. They're like the celebrities almost of their community in a way.
Yeah.
You know? So it makes sense that a wedding of their case would not be a normal wedding.
No, even if there was no issues at their wedding, this wedding would be. This is like royal wedding. Like everybody's watching it on TV. It's going to be talked about in the newspapers and magazines for weeks to come. And that would just be a if everything went smoothly. But this one doesn't. This one does not. All right. So let's get into some lead up action.
Let's get it, dude.
Right off the bat, Dr. Doom is one of the longest running villains, enemies of the Fantastic Four. We are about 40 issues in when we start this lead up, and Dr. Doom has been fighting these guys for years previously. I'd say of the 40 issues before this, he's probably shown up in at least 20 of them, maybe 25. The Fantastic Four, the only people that have ever beaten Dr. Doom, ever. And you would think that maybe he's beaten them once. He hasn't.
Yeah.
He hasn't beaten them.
Dr. Doom he only wins if it's like a big deal. You know, it's like, if it's issue number 6 and it's just a regular issue, don't think Dr. Doom's gonna win.
So he's taking over the Baxter building. He's in there. You really think he's gonna really take this one. But at this moment in time, it's actually a chance, because a few issues before, the Fantastic Four actually lost their powers in a fight against a team called the Frightful Four. It's a team of villains consisting of Madame Medusa of the Inhumans. To make that a long story less long, at one point she crashed. She hit her head, causing her to get amnesia.
Always amnesia.
And she was stranded on an island where her teammate, the Wizard, found her. So again, the Frightful Four team consists of her, Madame Medusa, the Wizard, the Sandman, and a guy named Paste Pot Pete.
Huh?
Paste Pot Pete. I don't know what a paste pot is, so please don't message us asking. But I will say at one point throughout this whole thing, he changes his name because he doesn't like being called Paste Pot Pete. So it's not going to last long. So yeah, again, they lost their powers a few issues before. So Dr. Doom has a chance to actually win this. Right now, Daredevil is spending some time with the Fantastic Four since they don't have their powers, and he's helping protect the whole team. If you guys don't know who Daredevil is, he's a blind...
They have the one blind guy to protect them.
The one blind guy in all of New York City that happens to be their lawyer is protecting them. Just protecting for normal people because they don't have any powers.
Don't get me wrong, Daredevil, like, even though he's blind, he's very skilled, very athletic, very strong, everything. But at the Fantastic Four, don't you know any other superheroes?
Like,
I mean, at least get 2 other people. There's 4 of you.
I mean, and my thing is, like, a lot of you guys live in New York City. Like, you guys are probably all down the street from each other. Daredevil's the one you guys chose to come help. So he's there. He's helping them, he's protecting them, making sure they don't get in any trouble because they don't have any powers anymore. And one thing I wanted to point out too is that, like, a lot of these, I don't know if you noticed this, but a lot of these characters tend to give each other props, like, in the middle of fights. So, like, at one point, Dr. Doom was just like, right now I'm fighting the strongest team in the world right now. He's like, nobody's ever bested these guys, and this is my chance. And then at a different point, Mr. Fantastic is just like, Doom's one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. But this is like mid-fight. And they always do it. So many people do it.
Yeah, it's always like a weird thought bubble where it's like, he's so strong and intelligent. I gotta try real hard to beat him.
I don't know if I can outsmart him this time. So and then Doom is taking advantage of the fact that the Fantastic Four doesn't have their powers. But he's also manhandling Daredevil pretty easily. So again, they should have brought in one of their other friends to come help him out. Or help them out. Because Daredevil he's completely fine. He has all of his strength. He hasn't been beaten before. But Doom is handling this guy like I've never seen somebody be handled before. Like, nothing that he does is even touching Doom. And then at one point, Reed is like, oh, I gotta have something in my lab, so it's something that's gonna be able to help us out here. So he finds something called an electronic stimulator, and it gives everybody their powers back. And he gives all 4 of them their powers back. My problem is that you guys have not had powers for at least 3 or 4 issues here.
But he had this thing.
This thing was just sitting in the back of his office this whole time, and he's just like, "Hey guys, our protection isn't really protecting us here, so I gotta find something."
It sounds more like they were just trying to take a vacation. And, like, they knew they had that in the back. They're like, okay, next week we'll use this. We'll get our powers back. But
yeah,
right
Ben
now,
was excited. He's like, I'm not ugly anymore. I'm not the thing anymore. And, like, we don't have any powers. Like, let's just go on a vacation. I got my girlfriend over here. I'm good. Just this is probably all happening in, like, the meantime of them planning something. And then Daredevil was like, hey, don't worry about it, guys. If anybody comes, I got you. Just plan your vacation. And then Doom shows up and just starts manhandling Daredevil.
Which seems kind of insulting, too, because, like, you know what kind of villains you have, like, and if you're going to have Daredevil protect you, like, your villain is Dr. Doom. It takes 4 of you to fight this guy, and you're going to have one blind acrobat protect you.
Yeah, they knew. You guys, everybody in the world, every superhero knows you, but that also means every villain knows you as well. And you were just like, hey, Daredevil, yeah, we're cool with that. Like, Doom is just beating this guy senseless. And you guys are just like, oh, okay, let's get our powers back. Go grab that gun that's sitting at the back of your office. And then Reed just has all this, like, he has the most ridiculous stuff built into this building. Like, he has in-floor refrigeration. Like, he can make the floor freezing cold. He has a button that blows up the elevator. And there's just so much more crazy stuff built into this building that he doesn't technically own. Like, like he doesn't own all of this stuff, and he's just like, in-floor refrigeration, let's do it. But it's not even like one small part of the floor, it's the whole floor. And then at one point Doom uses it against them, and then Doom has all this like cool, like Reed has all the like crazy stuff built into the building, but then Doom has all the cool stuff like built into his suit. So he has like a suit that has like 100,000 megavolt force field built into it. He can instantly hypnotize people with this suit. He has a sensitizer that increases the force of gravity around you. And this is all built into a suit. Like, this is big boy stuff. And then this is who you guys left Daredevil to fight. You sent the blind guy to go fight the guy that has an anti-gravity thing built into his suit.
Yeah, it wasn't fair.
You guys did your lawyer dirty. And then finally, since they have their powers back, they beat Doom again. But this time, the Fantastic Four think that this is a moral victory for them. And he thinks that because the Thing, Ben Grimm, beat Doom with just brute strength, that Doom's ego is shattered now. And that he's probably not ever going to fight them again. And I'll tell you one thing right now, that is not the case. That's not even the case before we finish this episode. He will be back. And then after Doom leaves, he just runs off. But I'll get to the fact that he just runs off, I will get to in a bit, because I think that's also a ridiculous point that is going to be talked about later. But Ben gets upset because he was living his life. He was about to go on vacation with his girl. He looked normal like he did before they went to space. And he's like, now you guys made me look ugly again. And you did it all for your own reasons. I was fine living like this. I was fine living like an actual human. And now I can't even go to the store and get coats that fit me. And then he decides, he's like, you know what, forget it. I'm quitting. I don't want to be the Fantastic Four anymore. I'm not going to be a part of this. So now they're the Fantastic Three because Ben quit. And then he leaves. His girlfriend shows up. She's like, where's Ben? They're like, oh, we don't know. She's like, well, what do you mean you don't know? He's your best friend. And then Reed's just like, hey, he's a grown man. We can't stop him.
The thing I was wondering, why did he stay on the team when he didn't have no powers? Like, he could just quit then and there. It's like, yeah, I'm free.
Yeah,
I don't
you
have
guys
to stick
all
around
like
with you guys anymore.
You didn't want to go up into space in the first place, and then your best friend set you up, and now you're stuck with these powers for your whole life. And then a team that you guys don't like says, hey, we're taking those powers. We're going to snatch them from you. We're going to do it. You don't have powers anymore. You're like, all right, well, I'll see you tomorrow, Reed. No. No. You go home. You kick it with your girlfriend. You hop on that plane immediately. So tell Reed and Sue you'll be back for their wedding. I'm supposed to just stick around and...
Yeah.
For what? You're not paying me. No thanks.
Yeah, there's no point. Ben was kind of asking for that to happen. You stick around with a guy like Reed, whose main purpose is just to kind of do things for himself, you're bound to get turned into a rock monster.
Yeah, he's a self-centered... I won't say what I was going to say, but he's a self-centered, rude person. He doesn't think about his friends. He only thinks about himself. So then after the girlfriend's like, well, you guys just let him go. Then the landlord shows up. So after this big fight in the building, the landlord shows up. And he's like, hey, you know somebody has to pay for this, right? Like, okay, that's cool. Like, you guys beat Doom, but somebody has to pay for this. And then he leaves, and then Sue's just like, you would think that he'd be a lot more grateful that this whole building isn't just like crumbled down.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure in your lease it didn't say that you can have superhero battles or turn your floor into a refrigerator or anything. Plant explosives in your elevator or anything. But yeah, he should be grateful that his building's not down at the floor.
I could have blown up the elevator here, and you're upset that I broke a couple windows? And this isn't going to be this. I tell everybody now, this won't be the last time we hear from the landlord either. He should be a main character here. So, just a small side point. Sue Storm thinks that men crying is unmanly. she thinks that Reed wants to cry because his best friend left, but he won't cry because it's unmanly to do. So, and then we get to a point where we see Ben, the Thing. He ended up hitchhiking a ride to Jersey, of all places. But he ended up getting bumped off the back of the truck while he was sleeping. And he just happened to land in front of a mansion that was occupied by the Frightful Four.
Man, this guy's luck sucks.
And then the Frightful Four see him out there. And then they decide to brainwash him. The wizard decides to brainwash him to become evil. They use... The wizard used brainwaves to lift Ben off of the street and slowly bring him into the house. And then once he was in the house, the wizard brainwashed him to be evil. And then he woke up and he only took commands from the wizard. And now, I guess technically you could call him the Frightful Five at that point.
Frightful Five and the Fantastic Three.
And then also... Paste Pot Pete, he's just a man that has a gun that shoots out glue. That's his only skill. And it makes it, every time I think about that, it makes it more and more confusing how they beat the Fantastic Four. Like, I can't imagine that Paste Pot Pete was a strong help in that fight.
You have a sticky guy, you have a woman with moving hair, you have a guy with like psychic powers,
and you have a guy made of sand.
Sandman? They're sort of like the opposites of... Like, the Sandman is made of tiny pieces of rock. And the Thing is made of bigger, solid pieces of rock.
There's so many things that are confusing about it. Like, the Fantastic Four, up until that point, hadn't been bested by anybody. Like, nobody had beaten them at that point. The Frightful Four are the only team... At that time of reading, the Frightful Four is the only team that beat these guys.
Yeah, that's gotta be embarrassing.
So, and then one other thing that I was kind of disappointed in is I feel like Stan Lee kind of missed a real opportunity here. Well, actually, you know what? Let me get to this. The Fantastic Four decide that they're going to go find Ben. Johnny's up in the air flying around trying to find traces of him somewhere, maybe footsteps in the ground, see if they can find him. He gets a call from one of his friends and says, "Hey, we saw Ben hitchhiking on the back of a truck heading towards Jersey." So they fly out to Jersey. Oh, no, sorry. They get in one of Johnny's brand new cars that he just got. They zoom out to Jersey. And then, of course, they just happen to go down the road that he goes down. And then they said at one point they checked every house on that street except for one. And it just happens to be this mansion that they haven't checked. So they get into the mansion. It's kind of booby-trapped. When they knock on the door, Reed gets sucked into the house. Sue and Johnny go in chasing after him, and now they're fighting. And then they see Ben there. So they're like, "Oh, cool, he's here. Ben, help us out." But he's already brainwashed. So he's he's like, "Yeah, I'll help you out." And he starts beating Reed. He's punching him in the face. Reed doesn't know what's going on. He goes after Sue. He's chasing her down. He goes after Johnny, but he's too quick. And then, so they're all fighting. And this is where I was kind of disappointed with Stan Lee in all of this. Because you have the Sandman and you have Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. Why did you guys not have the Human Torch turn the Sandman into glass? There's no reason that he shouldn't be hit with flames, and just turned it into glass. That's all.
Did he actually get hit with any flames?
No.
Oh.
Well, I read on a side note. I read that there was something saying that the Human Torch couldn't actually burn people with his flames in the comics.
Oh, yeah, I remember. I think I read that, like, so kids don't start playing with fire.
So he can't actually... I mean, I get why they didn't do it, but it's a real opportunity missed here.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like, the Sandman is just made of sand, so it kind of... If they made him, like, his sand form and then he did it, like, wouldn't that have been kind of...
That's what you would think, but it never happened, and I was kind of upset about it. But rest in peace, Stan Lee. I'll give him a pass on that one. So they're fighting. They're getting into it. Reed and Ben are just going back and forth. Reed keeps besting him. He keeps stretching out, absorbing the punches. He's not actually being hurt by any of this stuff. So finally, Ben grabs him from one end. He grabs him from the other end and just like balls him up into just a small little ball. And then he puts him in like this metal container and just shoves him in there and then like closes the lid super tight. He's done for at that point. Johnny's getting beat up by Medusa, Sandman. He's pretty much out of the fight. And then he ends up getting brainwashed too. Because they're like, oh, you guys knocked him out. Put him on the table. We're going to brainwash him too. Then we're going to be the Frightful Six. We're good here. So then they brainwash him. And then he's immediately trying to murder Sue and Reed at this point. And I've got to say, this is a horrible lead up to anybody's wedding. Like, you got to think, like, I'm getting married in a few months. Like, this is not the way that I wanted to live my life leading up to that. But they're doing it. I mean, they almost got murdered by Dr. Doom. And then the only team that's ever bested you is back again. And now they have your best friend and your brother on their side. Like, you just go get eloped at this point. So they're going through it. Sue was able to find the container containing Reed. And so she grabs that. She runs from the house. She's like, my brother's gone at this point. Ben's gone. I got to figure out how to get Reed out of here because she can't. He closed it so tight she can't do anything to open it up. So she's out there like in some field like half a mile away trying to figure it out. It's not happening. And then finally she's able to use like her force field to just open it up just enough for him to get out. And so now they're back in the game. But the Frightful Six at this point knew that they left. So now they're out. Johnny's up in the air flying around trying to find them. And then the Thing's running around on the ground trying to find them out there. And finally they see him in like a distance. So the Wizard's like, hey, Johnny, you fly out there, cut a line in the grass with fire, stop them, circle them so they can't go out anywhere, and then we should be good. And then Johnny flies out, and he ends up flying past Sue and Reed running out there. And then the Wizard's like, yo, what is this guy's problem? He must be flying too fast and just didn't see them down there. So Johnny's flying, and then finally he stops. He makes like a line in the grass, but it's way far away from where Sue and Reed are, so it wouldn't stop them anyways. And then Ben shows up, and he's like, I put you in that metal container to die. Like, you shouldn't be out right now. I'm going to put you back in there, or I'm going to kill you myself. And then Johnny comes down. He starts throwing fireballs, but they're all, like, he throws them closer to the Wizard and Thing instead of Reed and Sue. And then the Wizard and Medusa are like, yeah, what's wrong with this guy? Like, he's not doing anything right. And then after all of that, they get away. And then we find out that Johnny was just faking it the whole time. Because as Sue and Reed are running, she remembers that she had taken some wires out of the machine that brainwashed them in the first place. I don't know why she didn't say that. But he was faking it the whole time. And now that the Frightful Four realized that he was faking it, now they're Sandman and Paste Pot Pete are fighting with each other, and then they're both yelling at the Wizard, calling him an idiot because he didn't know. Medusa's pissed off just the same. She's like, you guys, how did you not know this? Like, we're screwed now. Like, he's going to come back. He's going to wreck everything. And then, yeah, they're just fighting with each other. They're going at each other's necks. And it's honestly, with the way that they hate each other, it's a miracle that they've lasted as long as they have with each other. They hate each other so much. So then now that Johnny's okay, he wasn't ever brainwashed in the first place, him, Sue, Reed all go back to the Baxter building because, of course, Reed has something to to change the thing back. And so they go back, they get that, and then, of course, it works. He puts it on Ben. He's moving slowly. He's like, if I make one wrong move, I could kill him. So he does it, and then, of course, what happens? He thinks he got it. He's not sure yet because Ben's knocked out at this point. Well, I guess I missed that part. The wizard had these things called like these anti-gravity discs, and Reed had grabbed a few of them when they were in the mansion. So he threw one on Ben when they had gotten close to surrounding them, and because it was an anti-gravity thing, it lifted him up in the air, and he couldn't gain his balance to fight back. So now he's just kind of floating. Reed grabbed him with his stretch arms and was just kind of shaking him the whole way back to New York. Like, they were in the car, and he was just kind of just shaking him like a little glass jar so he would stay off balance. But that, I guess all the shaking kind of like made him dizzy, made him pass out. So when they get back to the Baxter building, Reed uses that machine that he has to slowly give Ben his normal mind back, erases the brainwashing, and then he thinks it worked. He's not sure. He's still passed out. He's not going to know until he wakes up, but he's still passed out. So with them being there at the Baxter building, the Frightful Four is like, hey, no, we got to finish this. We're going back over there. We're going to finish them for good. Like, no one's going to best us, especially not the Fantastic Four. And then, so they're back at the Baxter building, and the Frightful Four is like, no, you're not going to best us. We're going to be back over there. And then they fly over there in the Wizard spaceship. And then all of a sudden, the comic cuts to Dr. Doom, and you would think he's back in Latveria. He's back in his home country. He's at, for some reason, he has a Latverian embassy office that's literally like across the street.
Across the street.
It's literally across the street from the Baxter building. Like, so he's looking out his window and he's like, I think somebody's attacking the Baxter building. I'm just going to sit back and just chill. Like, why does your biggest enemy have an office that's literally right across the street from yours? And so that means that when he ran off last time after he got beat, he basically just he went down the elevator and probably just walked across the street. Can you imagine? He's probably in the elevator. He's like, oh man, not again. He takes off the helmet. He just has it in his arm. And he's like, God damn, again? He gets down. He gets to the front door. He runs his hand through his hair. He's like, oh man. And then he just walks down the street back to his office.
I imagined, like, he gets beat, turns around, just starts, like, not a fast run, but like a light jog, runs to the elevator, goes down, and then you look out the window of where he was, and you just see this green little guy just running across the street. He almost gets hit by a taxi or something, but he runs across the street, runs into the embassy, and you just see the door slam hella quick.
And then he just sits in his window, and he just looks up at the building. He's like, I'm going to finish this one day. So that happens. When they cut over to the office window of Dr. Doom just staring up, saying, that's weird. There's a spaceship flying up there. And then so the evil Fantastic Four, basically, the Frightful Four, show up at the Baxter building, just like Doom saw. And they're like, no, we're going to finish this for good. They get up there and they're fighting. And then Reed's like, listen, I know you guys brainwashed my guy over here, but that's a loss on our end. We accept it. It's okay. I'm sorry. And then this whole time he's trying to stall. He's like, we're going to get these guys. And they still hadn't seen Johnny since they got back to the building. And apparently when the Frightful Four showed up, they had thrown one of those anti-gravity discs on Johnny. But it's like this like industrial sized one that's like way too big. So he's stuck to it, just floating outside the window, just spinning around. And then finally, Reed's just like, all right, you win. We're sorry. And then he's looking out the window at Johnny, and he sees that he can actually still flame on because he's not he's not brainwashed. So he's waiting for him to flame on, and then he's kind of timing this all perfectly because he knows in his head he knows that Ben is like not brainwashed anymore. He's good. And then finally Reed's just like, okay, you got us. And then when the wizard's going in to just like just finish it off, Ben wakes up and he's like, nope. He grabs his hand, he starts beating everybody. Johnny flames on outside the window, comes back in. He's beating everybody up too, but in this, when all this is going on, Medusa ends up jumping out of the window. She's like, nope, not dealing with this. I already reached my breaking point here with these guys. I'm done. So she hops out the window. She's trying to run off to the spaceship. And then Reed's like, Johnny, go take care of that. And then for some reason, when he gets out there, he sees her and he can easily catch up to her, but for some reason he stops and just kind of watches her go.
Hate to see you leave, but love to watch you go.
She gets in the ship. She takes off. We don't see her again. And then he comes back and Reed's like, cool, you're back. But where's Medusa at? And he's like, I couldn't catch up to her. And then Reed was like, no, you had more than enough time to catch her. I've seen you fly before. And then Johnny was like, listen, man, I messed up. I'm sorry. And then Reed, mind you, like, the rest of the Frightful Four has been beaten. They're in handcuffs, whatever. But his wife and his best friend are still there. And then Reed's like, listen, man, I know Medusa's a very attractive woman. I get it. I see the girl. She's great looking. But next time, you got to just do what we told you to do. And then Johnny's like, yeah, I told you to leave it alone. I don't want to talk about this. And then Reed was just like, all right, I'll leave it alone. He's like, I got to call the cops anyways to come pick up these guys. So he calls the cops, and then the cops think that he's prank calling them. So they never show up. The cops never show up. They're like, yeah, good one. Hang up on them. And then Reed's like, Johnny, you take them down to the police station. I got to check on Ben to see if he's all right. He ends up being all right. He's like, I'm just glad that I'm okay now. I can't wait for you guys' wedding to roll around. And then Reed's like, I'm glad you're back. I couldn't do this without my best man. And then that leads us right to the wedding. And then this is the main event. This is what we've all been waiting for. Marvel's most famous couple is getting ready to walk down the aisle with everybody in attendance. Every superhero, every celebrity is there. And it's going to be a great time. And we get a front row seat to all of this. We get to sit with the family in the front row for this wedding. And it's going to be great. So right back, Doom is he's not at his office anymore. He's in Latveria. But he's reading a Latverian newspaper with the headline reading today's the day for wedding bells for Reed and Sue. Because apparently they have nothing else going on out there. No wonder this guy hates him so much.
There's one reporter who just like hates Doom and just like, yeah, I'm just gonna only report on Fantastic Four.
We only report Fantastic Four news over here, okay? Nothing else. So that was the first weird thing that happened. Their newspaper is only reporting on Fantastic Four stuff. And then second was that after he read that, he immediately decided that today's the day that Reed's going to be the most vulnerable and I'm going to ruin his wedding. Oh, so there was just one other example of them kind of shouting each other out. And then Doom was like, I'm going to ruin this wedding, but I'm going to do it because they're the greatest fighting team the world has ever known. If I can do this, then I'll be the best. And then to go back to the lead up, Doom pulls out this thing called an emotion changer or chart. One page said emotion changer. Another page said emotion charger. So I was like, I'm just going to go with changer because that sounds like it makes the most sense. So he pulls out this thing called the emotion changer, which he uses to fan the flames of hatred in every evil person in the world.
Who just has this lying around?
Apparently Doom.
And
him and Reed Richards.
Reed and Doom just have a bunch of stuff just lying around in their places.
Like, when did you make that and what did you make it for? You just had it laying around. Him and Reed just have a whole bunch of stuff laying around just in case. So he uses the emotion changer. So now this, like you said before, everybody knows these guys. This wedding is a huge deal all over the world. Celebrities are there. Every superhero you've ever known is there. We got Tony Stark. We got a white Nick Fury. Nick Fury's running security for the whole thing.
You're the leader of a secret agency and you get demoted to security.
That's how famous these guys are. He's like, okay, cool. Yeah, you run the secret agency, but I need security and I don't trust anybody else. I don't trust any of my other superhero friends.
He doesn't strike me as the one to agree to do that.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't even strike me as the one to even show up.
I wouldn't even expect him to be there in the first place, let alone running security for the whole thing.
I kill people endlessly, but I won't miss a wedding ever.
So Professor Charles Xavier and the X-Men are there. And this is just a few of the teams or people that are there. But we also have a lot of villains there. Somebody named the Puppet Master immediately tried to use mind control on someone to poison the thing. Somebody called the Red Ghost shows up with his 3 super apes. Mole Man blasts through the floor, and then he calls Professor X an invalid, which I'm pretty sure is offensive now, but it sounds like it probably would have been offensive then the way he said it. And then at this point, the landlord of the Baxter building just kind of has to come with the terms with the fact that this building's not ever going to be whole.
I just imagine him sitting in his office, like, looking over the insurance claims, where they're like, we're not paying for this. And he's just, like, sweating bullets, like, how do I take care of these bills? These guys are just racking up. I can't get them out of the lease. I have no more money.
The rent is not covering any of these bills. I gotta raise the rent on these guys. I'm dying here. And then, he's rude. He's mean. He calls Professor X an invalid. Red Ghost shows up in Sue's room where she's getting ready for the wedding. And then him and his 3 super apes just start trying to attack her. And Ben's girlfriend is in there too. So Sue's just in the corner with the force field around the both of them. And these 3 apes are just like beating on the force field, trying to kill him. And then Doctor Strange surprisingly shows up in that room, and then he just uses something. He uses his powers to banish the apes and the Red Ghost to a whole nother dimension. So, I mean, why wouldn't he, I guess? And so far, Doom has caused all of this, and he hasn't left his office once. He's just back in Latveria, just chilling, watching it on TV. And then more villains start showing up. The Mandarin shows up. Kang the Conqueror shows up. Super Skrull shows up. And then he attacks Thor, who's on his way to the wedding. Ben says everything that we're all thinking. And he tells Reed and Sue, you guys should have just got eloped and not have done this whole thing. Because this isn't going well. And then I know Daredevil was there before helping them out, but I don't think that anybody is aware of the fact that Daredevil and Matt Murdock are the same people. Because Matt showed up because it's his client's wedding, and he showed up and was just like, hey, there's a lot of stuff going on. Do you guys need some help? And then Ben was like, the only help you could give us is you sitting back in your seat. He was like, you could help us by getting out of our way. We don't need your help. And I don't know if he was saying that because he's, in his eyes, he's just a lawyer, or because he got handled by Doom. And they just never explained it. And then Daredevil was like, nah, I'm gonna help. So he's with Foggy. So he tells them, hey, you guys go let everybody know that this wedding's gonna be delayed, and I'm just gonna, a lot's going on, so I'm gonna chill here. And then Foggy goes, and then Matt jumps out the window and then changes into his Daredevil costume. And then when he gets down to the main floor, there's like this truck full of like green army men ready to blow up the Baxter building with a big bomb on the back of their truck that they got from Hydra. And then Captain America, Iron Man show up. They also show up with Quicksilver. So Daredevil's down there trying to commandeer the vehicle with the bomb on the back. And then they switch the page again, and then more villains show up. The Executioner and the Enchantress show up, and then they start beating Captain America pretty bad. And then Mr. Hyde shows up from the famed Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde stories. Mr. Hyde shows up, and he wants a piece of the pie too. And then Hawkeye comes in and then saves Captain America from the Executioner and the Enchantress and Mr. Hyde. But then Hawkeye is almost smashed by a falling safe out of nowhere. Of all the scary villains that are in town right now trying to kill people, Hawkeye almost dies because his safe is falling down from the top of the building. And then he's only saved by young DeMarco here, his favorite Spider-Man. Comes in, hits the safe with some webs, stops it from falling on him.
Nice.
And he's like, I'll take my payment later. We can we can talk about that later. And then Hawkeye's like, hey, I'll give you whatever you want, pal. And then this is like, all of this is kind of like, I don't know if you've watched wrestling for a while, but this is kind of like one of those like 10-man tag matches that they set up on the beginning of like SmackDown episodes. And they're like, two people are out there talking, and then they're like, hey, we're going to put you guys in a match at the end of the night. And then somebody else comes out and they're like, nah, I want to be in that too. And then all these people just keep coming out and they're like, hey, 5-on-5 tag match at the end of the night. And Teddy Long is like, we're going to put The Undertaker in there, even though he hasn't been there for like 15 years.
I'll tell you who he is, player. The Undertaker! Oh my God!
It's just like, there's so much going on. Like, every page, like, a new villain shows up, and then a new superhero shows up, and it's just a lot. The Black Knight shows up, and he's shooting people with his lance, and that shouldn't make sense at all. But, okay. The Mandarin is using one of his 10 rings on some of the X-Men, just blasting them out of the sky. Eventually, every superhero in the world basically shows up except for Namor and the Hulk. And it wasn't really explained why, because Stan Lee put one of those little boxes at the bottom of the page why the Hulk didn't show up. But the reason Namor didn't show up was because, yes, obviously Namor has some evil bones in his body, as we've gone over. So these waves would have hit him for sure. But apparently another supervillain lives under the water named Atuma, and apparently he just happened to be in front of those waves, and he got hit with those. So when he comes up from the water to start handling his attack, Daredevil has commandeered that truck with the bomb on it, and he's driving towards the pier, because he was just going to let it go straight into the water. So when he gets to the end of the pier, he jumps off the truck, not knowing that somebody's coming up from the water. So that truck with the Hydra bomb on it just hits Atuma as soon as he comes out of the water, blasts him to pieces, and then that's the end of it. You don't see him again. Nothing. So I guess Daredevil did what he needed to do. This guy called the Human Top and Quicksilver are racing around the city to see who's the fastest. No, they're not fighting. Human Top was running super fast, and then Quicksilver catches up to him. He's like, hey, I heard you telling people that you were the fastest around, and I'm not going to let you keep telling that to people. And then they just keep running. And then Uatu, the Watcher, shows up, and he is not allowed to interfere with anything. And he immediately interferes as soon as he shows up.
Yeah, he's not supposed to interfere with anything, yet all of his stories involve him interfering with everything.
Yeah, and he interferes, and that's not in his job description. And he takes Reed on a journey through another dimension, like he's Rod Sterling in the Twilight Zone. But for some reason, in the comics, he just looks like Bobby Hill from King of the Hill. He just looks like Bobby Hill in like a toga. So he takes them through this interdimensional journey, and then they get to where Uatu lives, and then he's like, I have all of these weapons here. I'm not saying that you should take any of them. But if you just happen to take what you saw would work for this problem that you're having, that wouldn't be me interfering with any of this stuff. So Reed's looking through all the weapons that are up there. He's checking everything, and he's like, I'm smart enough to figure out what any of these weapons do, even though they're all from the future. I can figure it out. And then he looks at one of them. He's like, this is it. He's like it's a time displacer. So he takes it back, and he's like, if I turn this on, it's gonna take any of these evil human beings back to a time like right before all this happened, and they're not going to remember a single thing that happened. It just takes them to right back to the immediate past, and their memory is completely wiped. So he does it. He takes it back. He does it, and then it worked. All these villains go right back to where they were before, and and they don't remember anything. I was confused because it didn't touch a single superhero.
Yeah, how do you create a device to like just know who, like, because there's super villains, but then there's just bad people in the world. Like,
yeah,
did also take the bad people in the world and just put them back to someplace.
Like, that's the thing is, in the beginning, Doom was never like, I want every evil person to like go to the wedding and like cause havoc. Like, he just sent out bad waves to every evil person. So, like, imagine what was happening, like, on the West Coast with all this.
And all the superheroes are in New York fighting. Like, no one's taking care of anything happening on the West Coast.
Yeah, like, it's nuts. And so everything goes back to the way it was before. But I guess this also hits Doom somehow. So he doesn't even remember that he did this in the first place, which also doesn't make sense to me. And then finally the wedding happens. All is well. And then at the end of it all, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, the guy who drew the comic, they try to attend the wedding as well. But then they get kicked out because one of the security guys is just like, hey, there's two guys at the door and they keep trying to get in here. And then Nick Fury was like, no, kick them out. They're not coming in here. And then Stan and Jack just like walk off. They're like, hey man, this is kind of messed up. And then that was it. That was the end of the wedding. The most ridiculous wedding I've ever seen. Even the stuff I've seen on TV has never been this bad.
Yeah, that's it's been a wild ride for this wedding.
Yeah, it's been ridiculous. And Ben was right. They should have just eloped. They should have just gotten it over with.
Ben doesn't have room to say anything. One. He's been making bad decisions for the past few issues.
Yeah, he had just quit on them recently, so he was probably just like, I can't give any more bad news. I'm not even really sure if they still like are that cool with me in the first place. I shouldn't say anything. And then that was the end of the wedding. I did like the story. Even though there was a lot going on for an annual, it still felt like it kind of fit in with their main story that I was reading up to that point. But it overall was just a good story. Like, it was well written, way better than the first two episodes. It's kind of on par with like If This Be My Destiny stuff.
Yeah. And
I don't think Doom's ever. I haven't read a lot of Doom stuff, but I don't think there's not going to be many times where he gets the best of those guys.
Doom is one of those characters where if he does win, he somehow undoes his own victory.
What did I read one time where they said that like the only way that we would ever live in a perfect utopia was if Doom was the ruler? Yeah. So I think eventually like he'll get his own thing going and like actually be like strong like leader or villain or whatever, but right now he's getting handled like easily. But it's hard because he looks like such a badass.
Yeah, he has the looks, just not the skills.
And even it was the only part that was crazy to me was just that like the Frightful Four had bested the Fantastic Four like way before Doom did. That team shouldn't be. That's like one of those teams that just like should only be around for like one issue, and then they just break up before the issue's over. Yeah. But somehow they were stronger than any other team before, which is weird. But now they're not a thing because Medusa took off with the ship, and the other three are in jail. But I also, what's funny is that like I've realized that the jail that they put super villains and stuff in now, or at the time, is just like a regular jail. Yeah. Like, it's not like like these super max, like, in the middle of the ocean prisons that we're seeing in modern times. It's like, why are you putting Sandman in jail?
Behind bars.
Yeah. You're just gonna put him in general pop? Like, he's just gonna get out of there. I don't know, man. Yeah, I thought overall the story was good. Webheads wise, I'm gonna give it a 4.
4?
I'm gonna give this 4 webheads. Yeah, the story, the annual itself, the main event of it was, I think it was well told. Even though there's a lot of stuff going on, nothing was. Because it was an annual, like nothing was left like open ended. Like somebody showed up, they were finished off. Like even with when I was reading, like with Daredevil taking over the truck, I was like, oh, so we're just not going to talk about this right now. And then like 5-6 pages later, they had finished it up, and then the tomb was blasted to the bottom of the sea. So I liked it. I think it was really good. I think we're getting to a point now with the comics where like the stories are getting a lot better. The artwork's definitely getting a lot better. Unfortunately we're still at those the 2-3 paragraph panels.
Yeah.
Which is killing me. I mean, I guess they're not leaving us with like just all this super detailed stuff, and then we feel like we've read 40 pages and we're only like 5 in.
Yeah.
but it's still a lot. But yeah, I'm gonna stick with 4 webheads on this one.
I'm gonna give it 4. And
yeah,
who do you like to add to your roster of?
Oof.
I mean, this one's kind of a good one because you got so many options.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go with Ben. I'm gonna go with the Thing on this one. I need some strength on my team, and at this point he's just like super overpowered. Like nobody can stop this guy really.
Okay.
Like unless he just knocks himself out somehow, like you can't beat him.
I'm gonna go with.
Well, first we need your rating.
Rating. I'm gonna go with. I'd say 4 too. Like you said, they're a lot more enjoyable now, and especially when it's all these different characters like kind of interacting, and like each page is going to be, you know, a different character in a different situation. And I like that they didn't match them up with their normal sort of enemies, you know. So yeah, Daredevil's still in a truck from Hydra. You had the Mandarin fighting the X-Men. Like these aren't like their normal people that they fight, so it kind of adds like a little bit more of like, how are they going to overcome this type of issue, you know?
Yeah, it kind of expands the universe even more.
Yeah. And it's just fun seeing, like, all the characters kind of interact together, too, so.
This was kind of like in Endgame when, like, all the portals start opening up.
Yeah.
And then just everybody just starts, like, coming out. Like, had that happen, like, further in to, like, all these phases, and then we had all these characters going, like, that would be it. So who's your pick for your team?
I'm going to go with Daredevil.
The blind Daredevil.
I'm going to go with Daredevil because even though he is blind, he puts himself out there in situations which he knows are well above his pay grade, well above his skill level. He knows he should not be there, yet he is out there anyways, protecting a team of used-to-be superheroes and driving a truck with a bomb on it.
He was rolling with that truck, too. Like, and that's the thing is, like, it wasn't a timed bomb. It was just whenever it hit something, it's gonna blow up. So he could have slowed down. He could have just slowly drove it through the city, figured out where he was gonna dump it. But no, he was going at least 90, just like those green super soldiers were.
See, and this is why I pick him, because he's taking chances here. He's going 90 in a 25 mile per hour zone with a bomb that can blow up on impact. Yet here he is,
and. You know what I just thought of? He was driving that and he's blind.
Yeah, and he's driving and he's blind. So he's just bomb on impact and he's blind. Man. This man is...
He's just as blind as Stevie Wonder is.
But yeah, Daredevil's my guy.
All right. That's not a bad pick. That's not a bad pick. All right. So that was episode 4, the wedding of Reed Richards and Sue Storm. Now Sue Richards. We will be back again for episode number 5 next week. Again, please keep listening, share it with your friends. Catch us on Instagram at the Webheads Podcast. Catch us on Twitter now.
Nice.
The Webheads Pod. And you can catch me on Instagram individually at Steven, ST.EVEN. There's a good chance I'm not going to add you, but I'm probably... will feel too guilty to not do it. So I'll probably force myself to do it anyways. And you can catch my brother here at whatever he wants to tell you is his Instagram.
You can catch me at DeMarco Lamont, DeMarco_Lamont. On Instagram, you can catch me on my other show, Memories Not Guaranteed, where I talk about old memories and stuff with my friends. That's on Google, Spotify, pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts.
Great show.
What else? You can catch me on Xbox Live. Don't add me because I won't play with you.
Yeah, don't catch him there.
He probably won't catch me there.
Yeah.
My Xbox is a glorified Netflix spot.
Yeah.
What else? And just listen to the show. Keep listening. Send us, feedback on the Instagram for the show, or the Twitter for the show, or just on our individual, accounts. Let us know how you like the show. Let us know your team, what team that you would put together if you.
Yeah, keep us posted with those teams. I can still guarantee you that your team, with what we've gone through right now, will not be my team. And still, I told people this before, and I told my grandma this. Don't cheat. You pick from the episodes that we've had. I'm sorry, Grandma, my team will beat yours. I told my wife the same thing. Her team will not beat mine. And even if it did, I wouldn't tell her. That's too much glory for her to have on my podcast. But that's it. We are on Tell All of Your Friends. We're on Spotify, Google Podcasts. Hopefully at this point we're on Apple Podcasts. But the links are in our bios on all of the pages we mentioned before. Everybody take care of yourself. We will be back next week with another episode. Peace out.
Bye-bye.